On this episode of Locked On Lightning, the Lightning drop game one in overtime. We talk about the good, the bad, and what could have done better. All that and more. But first, let's play that music.
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to another episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Danker. I just want to thank all of you for making us your first listen of the day. And if you're following us on YouTube, I want to thank you for making us your first watch of the day. Today, we are discussing the Lightning dropping game one of the Stanley Cup Final, 4-3 loss in overtime. We talk about the good, the bad, and what could be done better in game two. And so let's start with the bad, really, because that's really how the game started for the Tampa Bay Lightning, giving up 2 goals on really just being overwhelmed in the opening minutes of this game. And that was kind of something that we kind of figured from this Tampa team. They over the last season or so, they've had more and more issues with teams that are able to match their speed, match their aggression on the offensive side of things. And I'm not I wasn't worried about it. You know, the Nichushkin goal. Okay. Yeah, there was some cause to be worried because, you know, you never want to be down 2-0 to start a game, especially against a team like Colorado, who are clearly, that was a testament in the first period, so dangerous on the offensive side of things. And I was more worried at that point in time about Andrei Vasilevskiy, because if you saw from those 2 goals, Vasilevskiy was clearly shaky. 2 goals that really shouldn't have gone in. You know, if those shots were ripped off in the second period or later on in the game at any point, Vasilevskiy probably would have saved those. And so, you know, I kind of figured we were going to see this. But I feel like the heat of the moment even got to me just because of how lively and loud that Colorado crowd was. So, but I was glad to see that Tampa started to turn things around. You got a goal from Nick Paul, his 4th of the playoffs. Which, what else can there be said about Nick Paul? He has had a fantastic go of it during this playoffs. Kind of almost a oops moment in that goal. He was looking to deke Kemper, and it actually worked out for the better. You know, he kind of lost the handle on it and had to go the other side on that shot. So, you know what? And I even tweeted it out before the period was over. I said, you know what? Going down 2-1, I would consider this a win for Tampa, given how this period started. So, you know what? I have to say that, those are one of the moments that you have to be thankful for Tampa's veteran leadership, for their ability to rise to the occasion and be able to weather the storm. And I spoke about this with the Locked On Avalanche guys, we did another crossover episode, and that'll be coming out tomorrow. I spoke about it with them saying, and I spoke about it to some fans as well, as, you know, not to really get too much into the if game. If Vasilevskiy makes those saves, very, very manageable shots too. If Vazzy makes those saves, we could very well be sitting here not talking about a 4-3 overtime loss, but talking about a 3-1 regulation win and Tampa having a 1-0 lead in the series. But listen, you know, you don't want to drop game one, especially a team like this. You definitely want to get off to a good start. You want to jump on this team early on in the series, kind of get in their heads a little bit, because Tampa has been there. Tampa has been here. They know what to excuse me. Tampa has been here, and they know how to weather the storm. They know what to do in certain situations. And we saw that, and that was the main key as to why they were able to get back into this game. More, and we'll talk about the positives in the second part of the show. But staying on the things that weren't done well, I wouldn't really call this a negative. It was more so of a moment where, you know, I understand why a lot of people are upset and still upset, and I'm upset. I was upset about it in the moment, But here's my thinking, and I'm referring to the Anthony Cirelli call that put the Lightning on the 5-on-3 that led to the goal that made it 2-0, 3-1 actually. And my attitude towards this was, well, all right, in the heat of the moment, okay, you know what? That is a little bit of a soft call. We've seen that called each ways, not called and also called. So I completely understand, like, in that moment. Like I said, I was upset as well over the tripping call. I don't think it was enough. I even saw some people even say that's embellishment on Makar. No, clearly there was a stick involved in his motion falling forward. I don't think it was enough to hinder, and really that's what it is. It's the refs are looking, is this obstructing his movement up the ice and being able to play the puck in a way to where it's outside of the rules, and they determine yes. And my thing now with it, if the Lightning did not come back and tie this game and push it to overtime, I probably would feel a little bit more different about it. But at the same time, since they came back and had the result that they had, I'm not too upset about it. And really, it didn't decide the game. Yeah, it put the Lightning a little bit more in a hole to climb out of. But at the end of the day, they came back and tied the game, which, like I said, we'll talk about with the positives. But my thought process and my opinion on it now that we're 24 hours past, I'm recording this at 10:57 Thursday night, dropping not too long afterwards. My thoughts about it are, well, all right, yeah, the call in retrospect, it's not a good call. Obviously, if that was called in favor of the Lightning, we probably feel differently about it. At the same time, I don't have a problem with that call if it's continuously going to be called throughout the series. And obviously we're going to see tripping calls, but I mean more so if we see calls like that being called for both teams. So that's all I care about with that. I'm not going to make too much of a big deal about penalties, just because I don't want to get into the whole conversation about calls that have been made that are not good, and then missed calls here that should have been made. That, yes, power plays are a huge deal, especially in the playoffs. But unless this particular play was called in the dying seconds that led to a last second crazy goal that won the Avalanche the game, I don't have a problem with it. The other thing that I did have an issue with that actually was a penalty, it wasn't so much that the fact that it was called. It was and what I'm referring to is Pat Maroon's delay of game penalty that he took not too long before the third period concluded, and really my whole issue with that. And listen, I'm completely understandable when it comes to moments in the game that, yeah, guys are going to get stuck out on the ice here and there. It just happens. But with a little bit over a minute left in the third period, why is Pat Maroon out there? It's a tie game. It's a big moment in the game. You want to have your big players out there, your Nikita Kucherovs, your Steven Stamkoses, Braden Point, the list goes on. I don't think the fourth line, especially Pat Maroon, should not be out there. I get it. You could tell at that moment in time, he knew exactly when he did it that he messed up. But even the commentary was trying to make the excuse. Well, he was trying to clear the puck and clearly missed the glass and went straight into the crowd. All right, but listen, we expect a lot more out of Maroon in that situation. Now, if this is kind of a situation where Riley Nash or Alex Barré-Boulet, even him, who has had enough playoff experience, even Riley Nash, a guy that maybe not has been in a ton of playoff games, okay, I could understand it a little bit. But even in that moment in time, Pat Maroon should not be on the ice. I'm sorry. No disrespect towards the big rig, but should not be on the ice at that moment in time. Big moment in the game. You should have your scorers. If I'm John Cooper, I'm pushing, that's the time in the game where I'm pushing my top guys out a little bit more. And this comes into kind of the conversation I'll talk about when we wrap up is the management of ice time. Not really a lot of guys over the 20-minute mark in this game, which is not necessarily bad, but would prefer, especially in certain situations, because we know John Cooper likes to play guys and give certain lines extra time based off of the game situations. Definitely want to see your top dogs on the ice at that moment in time. So we'll talk about some of the positive things in the second segment that the Lightning did in this game. Most importantly, coming back and tying things up. We'll talk about that. But first, I want to talk about our sponsor, our only sponsor of today's episode, and that is Built Bar. Now, you know how our friends at Built are always coming out with amazing new flavors. Well, this time, Built has truly outdone themselves with their new mud pie flavor. And for the first time ever, Built is introducing the new mud pie flavor in both Mud Pie Bar and the new and popular Puffs. And not sure what mud pie tastes like? Well, if you're a chocolate fan, you better sit down for this. The new mud pie is rich with whipped cream and chocolate mousse, smothered in 100% real chocolate and topped with cookies and cream crumble. The chocolate mousse, whipped cream, cookies and cream crumble. So great that you got to go to builtbar.com right now before they sell out. So go to built.com, use promo code LOCK15, and you'll get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. So talking about the negative things. Now, I mean the positive things, excuse me. I already spoke about the negative things. The positive things. And there's a lot of obvious things here. There was a lot of positives, and really to start off was, we'll go in chronological order, make it easy. So so the positive thing was the Lightning. You never saw, even when they went down early 2-0, you never saw a moment of panic from this team. Guys were more so frustrated, and it wasn't so much as that they were trying to force the issue. It was more so frustration of just, we got to get going. And you saw that the Nick Paul goal definitely got things going for this Tampa team. And yeah, the Avalanche eventually did score another goal to before the period ended. But at the same time, I thought, all things considered, being down by 2 instead of 3 was a huge, huge, huge win for Tampa. Now, it might not look at it, going to the second period, well, you're down 3-1. You still got a lot of ground to make up for, especially against this Colorado team. But I would say, being down 2, especially after everything that happened, I thought that was one of the biggest moments of the game. The Lightning be able to withstand the offensive attack of Colorado, and even going into that first period after Andre Palat scores on that fantastic, I could probably spend an entire episode talking about that pass from Nikita Kucherov. Nikita Kucherov continues to show why he is, in my opinion, one of the best wingers in the NHL, top 3 at least. And I thought it was huge to go in, even with 17:31 into the first period. The Avalanche did score that third goal in the power play to make it 3-1. I still think the way they wrapped up that period and allowing Andre Vasilevsky to get a little bit more of confidence, a little bit more into the swing of things as the game progressed, not letting him get overwhelmed with shots, and just being able to be done with that little early rust, whatever you want to call it. I thought that was huge for this team, and it was a huge win. In my opinion, that was really one of the turning points for the game. And then you put the cherry on top of it to start the second period, 12:51, not really the start, but, almost halfway, a little bit more halfway through. Andre Palat on that goal, fantastic touch down low on the pass. Nikita Kucherov putting it in a position where only Andre Palat could get to it on the rush and on the backhand, no less. So a fantastic sequence there. And then Mikhail Sergachev scoring on an assist from Hagel and Cirelli. Just this team's will to never give up. Testament to, their big win against the Rangers. And another positive thing that we saw was being able to manage the game. I spoke about how important it was for this Lightning team to try to not get sucked into the let's try and skate with these guys mindset, which we have seen them do. We saw it in the first period early on. There was times where Tampa did a very good job where Avalanche tried to push the pace, and then Tampa came back and tried to set up things, even though it didn't result in whether it be a good scoring chance or result in a goal. I still think that having that mindset of going in, let's slow down the game, kind of the equivalent to me at least of in football when you're going against one of those hurry up offenses. It's kind of like what you saw back in the days when the Patriots used to play the Colts. You have that run and gun offense, that hurry up offense with Peyton Manning. And then, you kind of had Tom Brady kind of just being the field general and managing his way down the field. That's kind of like what I see out of these two teams. The Avalanche obviously being the Colts in this scenario where, just running, trying to score as much as possible in a short period of time. A lot of quick strikes where you see from Tampa trying to manage the game, take minutes off the clock, try to keep the Avalanche in their own zone, try to wear those guys down so they're not as fresh and able to have those quick rushes as what we've seen. My only issue with that on the other side of that, which I really should have brought up, but not a big issue. I think it's something that John Cooper saw and that we'll probably see depending on the flow of the game. We'll see a lot more from Tampa in the second in game two. And that they kind of got away from it at certain times. But I thought overall, considering how this game started and then how it ended, I think that was a huge part of it. And as well as Tampa doing a good job along the boards. There was a couple of instances where they were just out muscled and out physical there. And that's something, I feel like guys were just not trying to get too physical too early on in this series, kind of just let things evolve as the series goes along. And I'm sure we'll see in game two a lot more physicality from Tampa. But I thought Tampa did a very good job managing the puck as the game went on, managing the game, managing the moments. And that all came back to very good puck possession, doing work in the faceoff circle. Only one Lightning player of all the players that took faceoffs, only one Lightning player below 50% in the faceoff circle. So very good job. I've made a huge deal about how either you take care of the puck or you win the battles in the faceoff circle. You have to do one of those to be able to be successful. Now, granted, the outcome of this game wasn't what we wanted it to be, but like I said, this game could have been a lot more ugly. And I thought the Tampa Bay Lightning showed why this series is far from over. A lot of people think that this series is going to be quick after this. I saw a lot of some Avalanche fans on Twitter saying, well, Avalanche in two. Obviously, that's a joke, but you see the cockiness there. So, but I have a ton of faith in this Tampa team, and I'm sure a lot of people do. And we saw it throughout the game. There was never, like I said, there was no worry from this team really at any point during the game. And I felt like that, along with the fan base on Twitter, was the same deal. So we'll see if Tampa can carry a lot of the things that they did well as learn from a lot of the things that they did wrong in this game and carry that over into game two. Because if they could do that, if they could execute, I am fairly confident that Tampa is going to take home game two, excuse me, and then go into game three with this series split. So, other than, the result on the scoreboard, like I said, very good effort from Tampa to turn things around, and things are looking very optimistic for game two. So let's talk about game two. Really looking for Tampa, like I said before, the carryover. I really want to see a lot of the things that they did. And we've seen this from Tampa in the past. We saw it in the Rangers series. We saw it in the Toronto series. We've seen it instances during the regular season where they've played teams not really have performed well in those games, but then have been able, whether it be later on the season or later in the week or whatever the case may be, meeting those teams again at one point in the season, being able to learn from those experiences. And I think that's the thing that makes Tampa such a dangerous team, alongside having a great coach like John Cooper, is that this team is not afraid to learn on the fly. They're not afraid to learn from their mistakes. They're not afraid to make mistakes, to be able to see and exploit certain things that the other team may or may not be doing correctly. And I think that this was, if we're going to look at game one, that was a learning experience. Now Tampa knows what they need to do in game two. And really the keys, and I'm going to try and do this before every game. So make sure and follow me on Twitter at DenkyDank, DenkyDank. I'm going to try and list all the important things that Tampa needs to do going to these games. And one of the important things is really they need to take control. They need to take control of the game early on. Need to show a lot more energy. We didn't really see that. I get it. What Colorado brought early on, very understandable. You kind of need to. It's kind of really, I like to equate it to when you're fishing and you hook this big marlin or substitute any big fish. And you're not looking for presentation. You're not trying to wrangle this thing in. You're just trying to tire them out. And then I think that's what Tampa was trying to do early on. And I think what they need to do this time is have that same approach, but at the same time, when they go into game two, what they need to do is really start to be more organized. Have an organized attack early on. Set the pace and show Colorado through very good puck possession, through dominating the battles along the boards and in the end boards. Show them that this isn't going to be a quick game. You're going to play by our pace. You could go down, try and get your 1-2 chances on that sequence, but guess what? You're going to have to come back into your own zone, defend your net, and you're going to have to play. You're going to have to be on the ice for about 45 seconds to a minute and a half. And so really that's what I think Tampa needs to do early on. Not so much, obviously you want to score goals early on, but at the same time, what I think Tampa should do is really just work on tiring out this Colorado team. Because what we saw in game one, and this goes back to what I kind of hinted at before, and this is a good point in time to talk about it. The time of ice that was allocated for both teams was very interesting. And I spoke about this with the Locked On Avalanche guys as well. And you kind of saw it a little bit more evened out with Tampa, and that's expected. John Cooper likes to have guys out on the ice for an equal amount of time, especially early on in the series. You don't want to get guys tired out too quickly. My only issue with it is I wish, especially later in the game as we were getting close to the end of regulation, I would have liked to have seen Nikita Kucherov out there a little bit more. I would have liked to have seen Steven Stamkos out there a little bit more. There was moments that I very much enjoyed, and I can't wait to see it as the series progresses. Braden Point kind of get his legs a little bit more under him. Those three guys out on the ice together. I think once Point starts to figure it out again, because we saw little blips and moments and flashes of what we have come to expect from Braden Point. If we could get that from him consistently on a shift-by-shift basis with that impending danger, that will open up the ice immensely for the other guys, for 91 and 86 especially. So I would like to kind of see John Cooper allocate the minutes where you not so much playing guys more, or maybe, I guess that would have to be the way to do it. Playing guys more to where you get more ice time between those three-star players. And then on the other side of that with Colorado, and this goes into dictating the pace, you saw there wasn't many guys on Colorado that played that many minutes. You saw mainly from their top players, you really saw the guys playing, close to, I would say 10. You had about 1, 2, 3 players, so their fourth line basically not even reach 8 minutes played, which is in a playoff game, which is, if you're a Colorado Avalanche fan, you should be a little bit concerned by that number, just because I see what Bednar's doing there. He wants to get his star players out on the ice as much as possible, because he just for the matchup sake, especially with Braden Point back in the lineup, you want to have your top guys against our top guys. I totally get that. But that's where the Lightning need to come back and exploit that in game two. And I'm sure John Cooper knows that. I'm sure when he looked at the post-game notes, he saw that. And that's one of the things that this coaching staff is going to talk about. for game 2, and it's probably going to work on see if they can integrate more of the top guys. What Tampa really wants to do is force, especially when you have the McKinnons, the Landeskog's, the Makars. Makar is a horse, so I don't expect him to get his minutes cut down a little bit, but you want like the Rantanens as well. What I expect John Cooper to do is whenever the top guys are on, is you're probably going to see more of a slow paced effort. You're going to see the Lightning setting up sequences in their own zone, kind of making those top line guys play as many minutes as possible early on. So where you force Colorado to play more of their fourth line guys, and that's when you strike. That's when you bring in the third line. That's when you even have that fourth line out there. And even at certain sequences when they have that fourth line out, bam, that's when you bring in 2 and 1, and that's where you strike. That's what you got. And I think that's what we're going to see in game 2. I think it's going to come down to a chess match of matchups. And I wouldn't be shocked, especially if you see a lot more ice time out of Kucherov. I wouldn't be surprised. Kucherov played, I can't find him on the sheet. Kucherov only played 18 minutes. I would expect that to be bumped up to 21, 22. Around that number, I think, is a good sweet spot for him. We've seen him play a little bit more than that, but I think in game 2, you really don't want to run him ragged that early. You got to also be smart. You also got to make sure that your guys are rested and ready to go for the rest of the series, because this, like any 7-game series, this isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. And really, that's what the Lightning, I think, need to keep in mind. So really being able to balance those two aspects, matchups, taking advantages of matchups, especially with the Avalanche fourth liners, and making Jared Bednar put out his fourth line a lot more. I think that's going to be vital to the success in this game. As for my prediction in this game, I'm expecting a 2-1 win from Tampa in this one. Goals from Andre Palat and Nikita Kucherov. I think Andre Palat has been fantastic this entire series. I mean, this entire playoff run. And him and Kucherov have had such a great chemistry going over this run. So I'd expect more fireworks from both of those guys. I wouldn't be surprised, if you even want to push to 3-1. I think that's fine, just because I think we're going to see Vasilevsky turn it on a lot earlier. He knows what to do now. He's kind of, I think he's very much adjusted to the series now. I think it took a little bit of time to kind of get that rust off after a couple of days, kind of get the feel for the game. And I think he's going to be locked in coming in. And I think this is going to be a statement game for Tampa. They're going to show Colorado, as well as the general NHL fan base, that this team is not at all by any means done with their success, and this dynasty is still going to be rolling. So I'd expect this to be a 3-1, 2-1 Tampa Bay win. And make sure to also subscribe to the pod, so once they win, because I'm not saying I'm guarantee it, but I am very confident. I'm about 96% sure that Tampa is going to come back, bounce back in this game, and you're going to see a great all-around performance on both sides of the ice. So make sure to like and subscribe to the pod. Give us a follow wherever the podcasts are distributed. On any audio platform, we are there. And make sure and go ahead and follow us on our YouTube channel. Drop a like, hit that notification bell, so as soon as the newest episode drops, you are notified. And go ahead and follow us on our social media pages, LO_Lightning on Twitter, as well as LockedOn_Lightning on Instagram. I'm on Twitter at DankyDank, DENKYD8NK. So in the meantime, that's been it for this episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Danker. I'll talk to you in the next one.